Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Rex Reviews Godzilla. This is my channel where I review Godzilla movies. I'm reviewing them in release order. So that means my last couple of movies were Godzilla vs. Hedorah, which I hated, Godzilla vs. Gigan, which I didn't like, and Godzilla vs. Megalon, which I also didn't like very much. Keep in mind, I love all the movies. Like, I love the movies. But I don't necessarily like all of them to the same degree, right? There's like a tier list. Like some movies are just S tier, A tier, and then some movies just aren't very good. And I think there's also a big difference between sitting through these movies, you know, just as a fan enjoying like a popcorn kaiju film, monster movie, and then watching it as like a critic, you know, kind of like watching it and like grading it and like you know, looking at the movie through a critical lens. It's kind of rough. It's hard to enjoy some of the Godzilla films. Like if I watched Godzilla vs. Gigan just for fun, I think I could enjoy it fine, actually. But watching it and actively like critiquing it as I watch it is harder. It's tough, you know? And the last couple of movies have had extremely low budgets. Like if you don't know, Godzilla vs. Gigan and Godzilla vs. Megalon had 30 million yen budgets. If you do the conversion to like USD, that's about $13. So that's how much money they had to make those two Godzilla films that we watched last. And you could tell the stock footage, you know, the bad writing, the bad acting, the bad choreo. I don't want to say the bad acting because I don't speak Japanese. I'm watching these in Japanese with English subtitles. I can't really grade the acting, but the fight choreography, terrible. The plot, not very good. Or, you know, even worse, sometimes the plot they're working with is interesting and has a ton of potential and they just blow it. It's just lazy, cutting corners, you know, poor writing, poor execution in all these films. And, you know, I only had one comment on my last video for Godzilla vs. Megalon, and it was from somebody that watches my gaming streams, which if you don't know, I have a Twitch channel, Rex Sterling, where I play through video games. And then I have a YouTube channel called Rex Sterling Live, where I post my gameplay streams and stuff like that. And, you know, some people come over from the gaming stuff to watch the Godzilla movie stuff. And one of them, ZCY Sama or Oni Sama, I don't know, she has different names on different screen names, but she left a comment, "It's slowly killing you." And yeah, you know, I was very low energy. I still am. I've just been really fatigued lately. I don't know why, but I've been so physically fatigued for like the past like 7 days or so. Like I've just been so feeling weak and sleepy and tired all the time. But on top of that, the last couple of movies, you know, it was kind of rough sitting through some very mid to low tier Godzilla films back to back to back. And when I realized that Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla was next after I reviewed Godzilla vs. Megalon, I was excited a little bit because I remember really liking this movie when I was a kid. I remember really liking Mechagodzilla as an antagonist, as a monster, the design, the capabilities. I remember liking this film overall a lot and rewatching this film more than some of the others. And so I was a little bit excited, but I was also nervous because, you know, we're looking at annualized Godzilla films. We're looking at, you know, Hedorah was 71, Gigan 72, Megalon 73, Mechagodzilla 74. The budgets had been so low. Hedorah had a 100 million yen budget, but they completely misused it and just wrecked that film. And then Gigan and Megalon got 30 million yen each. Which I said, you know, it's extremely low, and you could tell they used so much stock footage. It felt like they were so nerfed in the production of these films. And I think I forgot to mention that apparently Godzilla vs. Megalon is like notorious for also being rushed in terms of like shooting the actual film. So, you know, even though I graded and reviewed Gigan and Megalon poorly, I really do I can't be too hard on them. Like I can't really like you can't really hate them but so much because they were so handicapped in the production of those films. And I know we're here to talk about Mechagodzilla, but like I just hope what I'm trying to convey with this really long intro is the fatigue that I was feeling. You know, and I'm a huge Godzilla fan. I can only imagine the fatigue that actual fans were feeling at the time. You know, you have like I was able to watch Godzilla versus Megalon like 3 days ago, and now watch Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. If I had to sit on Godzilla versus Megalon for an entire year, you know, and then the next one comes out, I'm just like, you know, it just leaves such a bad taste in your mouth. Now imagine, you know, 4 or 5 years straight of just mid movies or worse, like really bad Godzilla movies. So I was feeling fatigued coming into this film. The budgets had been brutal. These films had been handicapped. They were aimed more and more at children. They had lost their edge. They didn't seem to really have much of an edge. The tone conflicted. The human drama was either, you know, unremarkable or just plain bad. And the monster fights were, you know, either so humanized that it felt like watching pro wrestling matches with guys in suits, or they were just bad, full of stock footage, really short fights, like the ending of Godzilla vs. Megalon, which, by the way, I know I forgot to mention Godzilla doing his drop kick at the end of Godzilla vs. Megalon. That's an iconic scene in Godzilla cinema, or the Godzilla franchise, and I totally forgot to mention it, and I feel terrible that I forgot that, but I think that kind of also is a statement on that film. Like, it was forgettable because it's such a throwaway moment the way they did it. Like, it's cool, Godzilla runs and jumps and slides on his tail and does this drop kick. It's also like nonsensical, and I think that it could have worked better if it was used better, if it was in a better film. But they just kind of waste it in this film. Like, Godzilla and Jet Jaguar had already pretty much won that fight. I think Gigan is either just about to bail or has already flown off and bailed. It's the very end of the fight, and Godzilla has Jet Jaguar pick up Megalon and hold him there so he can run and do that drop kick a couple of times, and then they just toss Megalon away, and then Megalon just runs away. It's just done as like icing on the cake. Like, it's a throwaway moment, really, in some ways, to me. It's just like a lot of things in that movie, they just did it because, like, hey, it would be cool if we did this, let's just do it, you know? And I don't think there was like any sort of like build up to it, or, you know, it wasn't done in a way where it like changed the direction of the fight, or, you know, it was done at like a critical moment in the fight, which is how I feel like it should have been used, would have given it more gravity. Instead, it's done as like a throwaway attack that Godzilla does after the fight's pretty much over. So, you know, it kind of was forgettable to me, and that's why I forgot it. But, you know, I hate I forgot to mention that. But I still think it's cool. You know, I'm glad it exists. I'm glad they did it. But again, execution is, you know, 9/10 of the grade, really. Like, you can have such a cool idea, but if you execute on it poorly, it's not really cool anymore, is it? It doesn't have the same effectiveness. So that's what I thought of that moment, and I'm sorry I forgot to mention it. Anyway, the point that I was trying to make is that going into this film, I was excited because I remember really liking this movie as a kid, but I was also nervous because of the last couple of movies I've seen and how those movies were nerfed by their budgets and how mishandled. You know, honestly, the last 3 monsters that have been introduced in a row, Hedorah, it's atrocious. It is a crime against God and nature and cinema and everything good in the world, what they did with Hedorah. Like, I will die on this hill that Hedorah had so much more potential. Had so much more potential as a monster and as an enemy of Godzilla. And just as a concept, there was so much more there they could have done with Hedorah. And it's atrocious how he was treated. Gigan comes in, introduced into the Godzilla franchise. Such a cool design, immediately looks weak. I think that Gigan was handled extremely, extremely poorly. I'm very frustrated with how Gigan was handled. One of my favorite monsters, and I think he was made to look weak in his own film. Megalon, the same thing. Megalon just looked dumb at times in his film, and again, I think a poorly handled monster that had more potential, but was just again mishandled. So here's Mechagodzilla, and I have to tell you, as a Godzilla fan, I watched this film, and I felt so seen and so heard. All these years. This was 1974, so this is like over 50 years ago. That's crazy. I feel so seen and heard, man. Like, so many of the criticisms that I had of Godzilla versus Hedorah, Gigan, and Megalon are addressed in this film, and I think it really starts with the budget. This film goes back to a 100 million yen budget, and you can tell there's very little stock footage used in this film, if any. I think there is some stock footage, but it's very minimal, if any. The Godzilla suit's been modified. They use 3 different suits in this film. They use a suit for Godzilla it's the suit from Godzilla vs. Megalon that was introduced then, but they've modified it so that it looks a little less friendly, looks a little less puppy dog eyes, and it looks a little bit meaner and more serious. And the tone of this film is definitely meaner and more serious. But Godzilla has a modified suit from the Megalon suit, which was already iconic to me. The Mechagodzilla in disguise Godzilla suit is separate, which was brilliant. It's brilliant that they had a slightly altered Godzilla suit for Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla in the early part of the film before he transforms, so that I just think it was brilliant because if you're a kid watching this movie, there's all these hints that like this is Godzilla, but it's not. Something's wrong with this Godzilla. I love the way they handled that. And then they also have a third suit that they use just for like water scenes. It's pretty obvious though. It's a very, very different face on that Godzilla. It's a promotional suit used for the water or something, but it's a very different face. So, not a big deal. I didn't like it. It's a little immersion breaking, but it still shows, that the production budget here is much higher. The pyrotechnics and the destruction, I mean, you get more monster scenes. You get Mechagodzilla destroying the city. You get Anguirus opening the film. You get Godzilla versus Anguirus, or Mechagodzilla versus Anguirus. Then you have Mechagodzilla versus King Caesar. Then you have Godzilla. You have Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla in the industrial plant section of town. I don't know if I already said that, but you have that. Then Godzilla versus Godzilla and King Caesar versus Mechagodzilla at the end. All of the fights are great. The pyrotechnics are insane. You have blood returning in the series. Lots of blood in this movie. And just Mechagodzilla has so many different weapons, and at the finale is just incredible. This is just a fucking great Godzilla movie, man. Like I really, really want to call it peak Godzilla, but I think for me, peak Godzilla, like a 10 out of 10 Godzilla film, is like the first film, Gojira, or Gojira. I don't know. I'm probably looking like an idiot trying to pronounce it. But it's the Godzilla movies where the human drama and the monster drama and monster scenes are both like at their peak. They're both equally compelling. Movies like, well, I don't want to talk about other movies yet, but movies like the original, where when you're watching the human scenes and the human characters and the human drama, you're like missing Godzilla. You're not like, when are they going to show Godzilla again? But it's actually like it's also peak. It's also extremely well done to where like the human parts of the Godzilla film in its own bubble is also an excellent film. So when you have both, like operating at like a really high level, that to me is peak Godzilla. I think this is like, for me, like a 9 out of 10 Godzilla film. An 8 out of 10 if I'm like, it's an 8 to a 9. I think for me it sits at a 9 because all of the things that this film does like poorly, and there's not a lot, but there are a few silly scenes. There are moments where the writing is not necessarily good. It's mostly all to do with the humans. Like the monster action is peak, but I think that the human drama here it's a little bit of a mixed bag, and it brings it down a little bit. But the movie overall is so excellent that I think that for me, anything I didn't like about this film, like the longer I sit on it, and I just finished watching it like 20 minutes ago. But the more time goes by, the more I just forget things I didn't like in this movie, and I just keep thinking about, all the things that I do like. And honestly, like my feelings toward this film improve the more I think about it and the more time I get away from the film, as the silly stuff just kind of melts away and just doesn't matter, and everything it did right just shines brighter and brighter in my mind. So I think this is a 9 out of 10 for me, 10 out of 10 for Godzilla, 8 out of 10 for the human drama and stuff, and I sit around a 9 for me. That's where I'm at. This movie is just so fucking good. I wanted to kind of go over a couple of things, just a couple of like little trivia points. I already talked about the budget. Jun Fukuda returns for this film. I have criticized his work a lot, but it's not I'm not criticizing him, and he's not solely in charge of whether or not a Godzilla film is good or bad. So I don't want it to sound like I have anything against this director, but this was his final Godzilla film as director, and what a way to go out. He fucking killed it. I think this was also the final soundtrack done by the composer. Let me see. Masaru Sato. It was his final Godzilla score. What an incredible score to go out on. I mean, like, I'm regardless of things that I've criticized in the past, and I forgot to even say this in my Megalon review, but I felt like the soundtrack for the Megalon movie really worked, and I don't know that Sato worked on that. Was that his name, Sato? I don't know that he worked on that. Yeah, Sato. I don't know that he worked on that film, but one issue I had with it is that the music worked for the human parts of Megalon, but it did not work for the monster scenes. Here, you don't have that. You get this really good like soundtrack during the intro of the opening of the movie and during the human scenes. It's like a lighter kind of jazzy Okinawan like traditional Japanese music. Let me see what they actually described it as. Jazz influenced / funky 1970s action music, prominent bass, jazz rhythms, Okinawan music influences in materials surrounding King Caesar. The music is really good. A lot of Okinawan influenced ceremonial music mixed in with like some jazzy, like whimsical soundtrack when it's appropriate. Like when it's appropriate, you have that music. You don't have it during, the monster scenes or anything like that. Like they've done in some of the previous Godzilla films where it doesn't fit. Like, no, they use it during the human scenes, during lighter human scenes. They use more dramatic music when there's like action on screen or like the humans are fighting with the aliens, because yes, this is another, aliens attacking Earth. Mechagodzilla is another like alien monster technically. But the music, the score is just done so well, and everything is composed well and used well. And when you do have the scenes with Mechagodzilla and Godzilla, They use some jazzy sounds, but it works. A lot of bass, like heavier music, more like suspense, more drama in the music. It just works. It works really, really well. The cinematography is improved so much. You can tell there's so many different places. Dr. Serizawa's back, by the way. They could afford to pay him. You know, when I saw him, I was like, okay, I think we're back. When I saw Serizawa again, I was like, okay, I think we might be back. Yeah, like they use everything appropriately. I interrupted myself to mention that Serizawa thing, and then I forgot what I was trying to say before that. But there's just so many moments in this movie where the increased budget just lifts everything. It lifts every part of this movie. And it's funny because, you know, Godzilla versus the smog monster, right? That was Hedorah. It had a budget around, you know, approximately the same as this. And that movie had the potential to be amazing, but the execution was ass. The movie has the potential to be amazing. You have the budget, and the execution is fucking phenomenal. And I just have so much praise for this film. You know, I talked about how in the previous movies they introduced new monsters like Gigan, Hedorah, and Megalon, and then they look weak in their own movies, in their own films. Mechagodzilla looks so fucking strong. Like, this is how you introduce a monster, you know? The last time I think they did this was probably with Ghidorah. When they introduced Ghidorah, they introduced him and he looked very, very strong. Here, they introduced Mechagodzilla, and he is a fucking beast. You know, I should probably get into a little bit of like my notes and stuff. But you know, let me also show you these are your monsters here. So there is King Caesar, and you know something, I really didn't like Jet Jaguar being in the Megalon movie because I'm here for Godzilla. I'm having to deal with this fucking robot that I don't care about. I don't like how humanized all the monsters act already, and then this is clearly a dude in a rubber suit. It's just like I wasn't digging it, you know. I was not on board with it. I wasn't really enjoying it. I thought that I would dislike King Caesar being in this movie more. Because, again, I'm here for Godzilla. I'm here for Mechagodzilla. Why is he here? We don't need him. But they did, I would say, 3 things here that salvaged this, that made me not hate this. One, King Caesar's on Godzilla's side. Mechagodzilla is so strong, so fucking badass, that Godzilla needed help. And not Anguirus, needed some real fucking help with this fight. So I like that. He's not there to help the bad guy. The bad guy doesn't need any assistance. The good guy needs help. So I think that benefits Mechagodzilla, makes him look stronger. 2, the suit actor did an amazing job. They all did. All 3 suit actors did amazing. But he's also, by the way, the suit actor for Anguirus, if you didn't know, did amazing. King Caesar acts different, fights different. He's not when it comes to the monster scenes, like King Caesar is a big part of the movie in terms of the plot and the human drama, because the humans are basically trying to summon King Caesar for this fight. And that's what a lot of the human drama is around. It's them like dealing with the aliens and, you know, trying to sabotage the aliens and, you know, help defeat Mechagodzilla, which thankfully they are not the reason why Godzilla wins this fight. King Caesar is not necessarily the reason why Godzilla wins this fight. And, you know, it's just good fucking writing, man, because, you know, it kind of looks like at the end of the film that the humans are going to like sabotage the aliens' computers and basically destroy the computers that control Mechagodzilla, and then Mechagodzilla will just basically be like non-functional, and then Godzilla wins the fight. And going into like the final moments of the film, I was like, please don't do that. Please don't do that. They don't do that. Thank you. You did so fucking good. Godzilla wins the fight on his own with the help of King Caesar, but not overwhelmingly with the help of King Caesar. King Caesar is like down for the count when Godzilla shows up. And in the final moments where Godzilla like breaks Mechagodzilla's neck, which is so fucking sick also. Such a great scene, done so well. It's just him and Mechagodzilla in that final moment. And the humans end up destroying the computers after that scene, which causes Mechagodzilla to explode. So it's just done so well. They could have easily fucked that up, but they didn't, and I appreciate it. What's the last thing? So the suit actor, the suit actor's great. He's not like a huge focus of the movie the way that Jet Jaguar was, because you're constantly getting scenes with either Mechagodzilla and Geras or Godzilla. Like, you're getting monster scenes throughout. This is where they really fucked up in Megalon, because you keep having to deal with this plot around Jet Jaguar, and you're like, okay, but I'm not really here for that. Like, I'm here for Godzilla and Megalon, and you just like, it feels like 70% of that film is Jaguar, and it's so annoying, but that's not the case here. And the last thing is he's not humanized so much. Unlike, Jet Jaguar, I complained about like the handshake moment in Godzilla versus Megalon, where, Jet Jaguar communicates with Godzilla. When Godzilla shows up to save Jet Jaguar, you get something similar here. King Caesar is down. Mechagodzilla is kicking his ass. Godzilla shows up, but they don't greet each other. Godzilla and King Caesar don't greet each other and like shake hands and, start like talking like, oh, thank you so much, man. You saved me, blah, blah, blah. They don't do any of that shit. In fact, Godzilla and King Caesar barely acknowledge each other at all. It's so fucking peak. It's done so well. Like, that's how you do it. You know what I mean? They have a common enemy. They're there to fight the common enemy. This isn't some buddy cop bullshit. It's serious. And so for those reasons, King Caesar's like plot or subplot in this film and his action in the monster sequences with Godzilla and Mechagodzilla, I didn't mind it. He provided he did stand on his own 2 feet fighting Mechagodzilla for a little bit until Mechagodzilla starts using more of his weapons. Then he overpowers him, so he gets a little bit of shine. It's similar to pro wrestling psychology. It's done so well. The good guy gets a little bit of shine. He gets cut off by the bad guy. Bad guy starts putting heat on him, like starts burying him. Then he gets help from his tag partner here, kind of. It's like they use a lot of like pro wrestling type shit in the previous movies, but it's done so poorly. Here they do it so well, like the psychology and the writing, and then like the way it's shot and the cinematography, the miniatures and the set design is done so well. The explosions, like, my God, there's so many scenes where there's like just sparks shooting everywhere, explosions everywhere, sometimes not even for a good reason. I don't fucking care, dude. They really let the special effects director pop off, and I love it. I just love it. So yeah, the King Caesar, I'm fine with it. I think he did great. I think he served a good purpose in the film. He also kind of helps along, the subplot around him helps move the plot around with Mechagodzilla. It helps feed into lore about these aliens. The aliens also, like, again, I feel heard. I complained about, so many times they've had like aliens attacking Earth in previous Godzilla films, and these aliens look fucking ridiculous. It's like dudes in like terrible cosplay outfits or Halloween outfits from like Walmart or something. Like the aliens just look laughable. Like I understand that they wanted to go for the aliens looking very different from humans, wearing different clothes, not dressing the same, etc., etc. But they would make them look so dumb and so ridiculous that it's just laughable. And I think that when you get to that level of silly, you start to lose me. It's hard for me to be immersed. But here they don't do that. The aliens are, they're dressed differently in like these kind of space uniforms, but it's not ridiculous. It's not laughable. They don't act ridiculous or laughable. The only thing about the aliens that I thought was bad is, they kind of do this thing again that I've complained about in some of the previous films, where when the commander of the aliens first interacts with Dr. Serizawa, I'm sorry, but I'll probably always call him that. I didn't even bother to write down the character names. I didn't want to take a million notes and go scene by scene on this review. I just really wanted to just fucking yap about how much I love this movie. That's really what I want to do. I'm not worried about necessarily going scene by scene, but I'll try to talk about as much as I can. Anyway, they still do that thing where, when the commander of the aliens interacts with the good guys, he just gives them, his whole backstory plot, all of his secret evil plans, etc., etc. They still do that. It's not terrible here. It's not done like he does it, but like where in Megalon they did that, and then they were like, oh no, like, the prisoners escaped and they know our secret plan. It's like, well, dumbass, you told them. Here it's not like that. So I appreciate that. And then for some reason, it's never explained. Like, the aliens are from like Black Hole Planet 3 or some fucking weird planet, right? But when the aliens are killed or injured, they start like transforming, and the scenes are terrible because they basically freeze the movie. They freeze frame, and then they do this horrible effect on the aliens' faces or hands, and they turn into apes. So I don't know if Planet of the Apes came out in the 70s or the 60s or earlier. I'm sorry. I've never watched Planet of the Apes. I don't know any of the lore around that. So I don't know if this is inspired by Planet of the Apes, right? But it looks like it is. And it's never explained. It's never explained. Even when the humans see them turn into like apes and gorillas when they transform, it's never discussed. So I just don't know why they decided to do that, other than that they just did that. And I don't know how it makes sense. Like, unless there's something about, like, maybe they're an ancient humanoid race that left Earth and is now returning to take it over, but that's not the plot. That's never mentioned unless the translation's off. So, I don't know. I just don't know about that. And then also there's one scene that annoyed me a little bit. After Godzilla and Mechagodzilla's first confrontation, Mechagodzilla's damaged from the fight, and they recall Mechagodzilla for repairs, which I think is brilliant. It's a great way to pull Mechagodzilla out of the film so that you can get back to the human plot, and you can get back to, like, you can get to all the other things you want to do in the movie without me as a viewer feeling like I'm missing out on anything. Because, Mechagodzilla is being repaired right now. I don't care about that. So we can watch other stuff until he's ready to fight again. I think that's fucking good writing. I liked it. But Mechagodzilla is damaged, and they want to repair Mechagodzilla quickly. And they're in, like, their alien control room, which is down, like, in a cave or something. They're like, their base is hidden in a cave. And, one of the aliens is saying to, like, the commander, the leader, he's like, we got to get these repairs done quicker, or, the command base is going to know that we failed, and, so the leader's like, it's fine. We'll just find a human scientist that's versed in alien technology. I'm sorry, like, what? Like, can you run that by me again? The commander of the aliens is like, he makes several references to how proud he is of, their scientists and their engineers creating Mechagodzilla. Why would an Earth scientist that doesn't know anything about space technology that we know of, like, there's no, like, plot reason or lore reason behind Dr. Serizawa's character that would explain why he would understand space technology better than the aliens that actually invented it and developed it. So that was just an excuse to pull the humans into the base, to kidnap the humans, pull them into the base, get Dr. Serizawa to work on their technology, help repair Mechagodzilla, so that he could then understand their technology better to foil their technology at the end. But I think the reason why it didn't really bother me more is because it ends up being very inconsequential to like the overall film. It doesn't really interfere with like the final battle. Like the final battle is so fucking good with Godzilla and Mechagodzilla and King Caesar, to be honest with you. Even though he wasn't, in my opinion, needed for this, I don't really feel like he brings it down in any way. So, luckily everything that's going on with the humans and the aliens and what they're doing, it never interferes with the quality of the monster scenes, which are just fucking, they're honestly like godly, like especially compared to some of the previous shit we've been dealing with in the past couple of movies. It's done so well. I honestly think that since the original Gojira, this is probably my favorite Godzilla film. Like rewatching them again. Like I liked Invasion of Astro Monster. Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster I liked. There's parts of other Godzilla films that I liked, but like this one is so good. And getting back to that darker, edgier tone, like they do that so well. So let's talk about like the monster sequences kind of in order. So the film starts with Anguirus. Like they show Anguirus, and Anguirus is like wandering around. A lot of this, by the way, shot in the dark. Thank you. Like some of it's during the day, but some of it's at night. Adds a little bit of eeriness. This film does have a very eerie tone throughout it, which I think really helps with the tension. But they show Anguirus, and Anguirus is like kind of like roaring or braying or whatever you would call him, like making his sounds or whatever. And it just seems like Anguirus, like it's not explicitly stated, but clearly, through the film you get the idea that Anguirus notices that something's not right. So Anguirus starts traveling towards like mainland Japan, causing earthquakes as he goes. And there's a huge explosion in one of the mountains. Godzilla appears. The aliens have summoned Godzilla, but you don't know that yet. Godzilla appears. His roar is immediately like the Mechagodzilla roar, so the machine roar. So if you're an adult, maybe a child wouldn't get onto this, and they said that they wanted it to be super obvious that this Godzilla wasn't the real Godzilla. They wanted it to be super obvious from the beginning. I remember watching this movie as a kid, and I don't think I knew that this was Mechagodzilla until like the shoulder reveal during the fight with Anguirus. Anguirus knocks off a piece of like the Godzilla disguise, and you see the metal underneath. So I have to say that even though as an adult, maybe I'm more critical of it, as a kid, it totally worked on me, because even though they were making it clear that it wasn't Godzilla, I was probably like 4 or 5 years old at the time. I didn't really catch on that it wasn't Godzilla. But as an adult watching this, I kind of wondered to myself, like, I wonder if, or what it would have been like. Because I think what they did was good. I'm not saying they should have done it differently, but I wonder what it would have been like if they held that secret a little bit longer. If it wasn't so obvious, and you had Godzilla show up and just like start fucking destroying mainland Japan and attacking buildings, attacking these like power plants, attacking the city, and it wasn't so obvious. Like, I wonder how that would have affected me as the viewer, like now, like I wonder if I would have appreciated it more. But they did it a certain way. They explained why they did it a certain way. And I remember watching it as a kid. I didn't really catch on to it at first. So I think what they did is totally fine. Just in my head, I wonder what it would have been like to have not known and been like, yo, what the fuck, Of course, I'm sure by the title, Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, like if you're an adult, you're probably already going to suspect anyway. So they probably did make the right decision. But anyway, the Godzilla suit for Mechagodzilla, when he's first like appearing as Godzilla, the design is slightly different. Brilliant. He looks a little bit off. He sounds like a robot. When he uses his breath, it's Mechagodzilla's beam. Like, it looks the same as Mechagodzilla's eye beam. And so it's just totally obvious this is not Godzilla, which, the name of the film is Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, so I think it's great. Anguirus confronts the false Godzilla, and they have a fight, and I think it's really good. And Anguirus gets a couple of hits in, and and I love the human commentary on these fights when they see Anguirus fight Godzilla. They're like, why would Anguirus, like, first of all, why is Godzilla showing up after all these previous movies, which I'm guessing it's all one timeline based on how the humans react in this film? Why would Godzilla show up and start destroying everything? Why would Anguirus show up and start fighting his friend? Everybody's so confused. And then Mechagodzilla beats the fuck out of Anguirus, and even like at the end of the fight, he grabs Anguirus's mouth and just starts like breaking his jaw, ripping his mouth open, and blood starts shooting out of Anguirus's mouth. And then like they show all this like bloody like sludge, like soft tissue that he just rips out of Anguirus's mouth. And I honestly thought he was gonna kill Anguirus in this film. I was like, holy fuck. But he doesn't. Anguirus is able to crawl away and retreat, but he's like severely injured. And I think this has probably been the best way. I hate to say this because it sounds kind of fucked up, but I think this is probably the best way they've used Anguirus in the films so far. Like, I really think this was a great way, because you feel sorry for him, because I've always said it's kind of frustrating when they want me to take Anguirus super seriously, because Anguirus has like no special ability in combat, He doesn't have a breath, he doesn't have any kind of beam attack, he just has spikes on his back and he crawls around on his hands and knees. It's like really hard for me to take him seriously. But here they use it to their advantage because he's fighting Mechagodzilla. He's clearly outmatched. And then the way he gets beaten down and roughed up and brutalized, like I feel sorry for him. I was like, fuck, that's fucked up, man. And then when Godzilla finally shows up, you're like, yeah, dude, fuck him up, dude. Like, what he did to Anguirus was dirty. So the first meeting between Godzilla and Mechagodzilla is done, in my opinion, mostly well. I love the way Godzilla shows up. So Mechagodzilla is destroying like this power plant area, and all of a sudden this one building that he's approaching and he's about to destroy, all of a sudden the building starts like flashing and explodes, and Godzilla comes out of the building. And it's like a really cool reveal. And then you have a standoff of Godzilla versus Godzilla. It's shot well. It looks awesome. There's these human characters that are watching, and they're just like, what the fuck? Like, it's a crazy scene. The only thing that I wish they would have done a little bit differently is Godzilla emerges, they kind of stand off, and then Mechagodzilla immediately shoots Godzilla like at Godzilla's feet with the beams, and Godzilla kind of stumbles and stuff. I wish that Godzilla would have looked a little bit stronger when he first emerges and confronts Mechagodzilla, because in my head I'm like, he's gonna be pissed off, bro. First of all, why do you look like me? And second of all, what you did to my friend, what you did to Anguirus. I would have liked to have seen Godzilla show up and start attacking Mechagodzilla like off rip. Even if he starts attacking and it's somewhat ineffectual, which they do, he starts using his breath on Mechagodzilla and it's not quite very like effectual. And then Mechagodzilla's attacks on Godzilla are more like, they have more effect. They're stronger. So I like that they still did that. Overall, this is a great scene. I am extremely nitpicking right now. I just wish Godzilla would have shown up and immediately attacked, instead of like getting shot at and kind of stumbling around a little bit before, getting back to this standoff. Godzilla ends up damaging Mechagodzilla somewhat, and Mechagodzilla does his transformation, like from the Godzilla suit to his actual suit, and I love his design here. I know Mechagodzilla has other designs later. This design to me is iconic. I fucking love this design for him. I think this is such an amazing design. I love how many weapons he has. I love the way he looks. He's intimidating. I just love his design. He starts fucking up Godzilla, and I can't remember exactly. Oh, I think the way it happens, I think this is, I really remember thinking this is done well too. The humans are trying to get a better look. They didn't want to waste everything on this first confrontation, so they do this really smart thing where they just let the pyrotechnics go crazy. Godzilla is fighting Mechagodzilla. After Mechagodzilla transforms and starts using his attacks on Godzilla, and Godzilla's like fighting back and shooting his breath, they basically just have Which, by the way, his breath looks a little bit better here, a little bit more concentrated. I think his spikes do light up a little bit when he shoots. I can't really remember, but everything looked fantastic. It's the blue breath again. And it's I think it's a little bit more of a beam here, but still like that kind of 50-50 like beam with a little bit of like spray texture to it, whatever. But everything, all the buildings and all of the buildings and this like industrial plant, everything just starts exploding. Everything is exploding everywhere, and you hear Mechagodzilla and Godzilla fighting but you can't see them because of the smoke and the explosions, and the human characters are trying to get a look, and it's like crazy. The pyrotechnics are insane, and then Godzilla just kind of like the explosions throw Godzilla back into like the lake or something like that. He gets thrown into water, and Mechagodzilla gets damaged, and they pull him out, and then like the water that Godzilla falls into just starts like it's bubbling up after he falls into it, and it just starts just starts bubbling up, and I mean a lot of fucking blood, and it's like holy shit, like did Godzilla even survive that? And they do this scene later where they show Godzilla back on like I guess Monster Island, which they never like refer to Monster Island. Thank you. Like they never, like so many things they do here is show don't tell, and that's just to me my preferred storytelling method. It's show don't tell. And that's one reason why the Godzilla lightning scene works so well. Godzilla is back on like Monster Island or wherever the fuck he was, and he's injured, and there's this, it's at night, and there's this rainstorm and lightning striking everywhere, and the music is perfect, and he's roaring, and like all of a sudden lightning just starts striking him over and over and over. It even like it starts to like look like it's powering him up with like this like blue flashes across his body, but there's also like explosions on him when the lightning is hitting him. It almost looks like it's damaging him, but it's clearly like he's powering up, or he's like being imbued with some sort of strength. It's never elaborated on. There's no human character there to say something stupid and hokey like, oh, the gods favored Godzilla, and, his determination, caused a storm. Like, there's no dumb exposition. You just kind of see this scene happen, and it's a badass scene. It's not fully explained. Thank God. You can kind of, imagine whatever you want to in this scenario. But he's being struck by lightning over and over, and it's clear that he's like regenerating, healing, and powering up for another confrontation. I think it's fucking excellent. And, then eventually, the humans have been, trying to summon King Caesar to defend Okinawa and, defend against Mechagodzilla, and eventually they do. King Caesar shows up. I initially, like, my first impression of King Caesar, I thought he was like some kind of dog, but he's like a lion dog mix apparently. And I'm not the biggest fan of his design, but he really is a side monster in this movie. He's not on the level of Mechagodzilla or Godzilla, but when he does emerge to fight Mechagodzilla, he does pretty well at first. He acts differently, he moves differently, he attacks differently. He does more clawing than punching. He's very fast, very agile, which you would expect for like a dog lion, right? He runs right at Mechagodzilla. He has this really cool ability where when Mechagodzilla uses the eye beams on King Caesar, he's able to absorb it through one of his eyes. He absorbs the energy in one eye and shoots it back out at Mechagodzilla through the other eye. Fucking cool. Never explained. Don't need to. Fucking cool. I like it. I want cool monster sequences, and that's what you're giving me. And then, the only real weakness to Mechagodzilla is that he's a robot, right? Because he's just a robot, there's this sense of like him not being sentient or not having any degree of personality. That's really the only drawback to Mechagodzilla, and I think that's fine. I think it's fine for monsters to have inherent flaws or, imperfections or whatever. But I do think that the way the suit actor moves with Mechagodzilla, even in the Godzilla disguise, he moves like a robot. He stomps like a robot. And he does just ever so slightly show bits of personality in this film, like learning, you know. And I mean, like, that's also a robotic thing, but I don't know. I just really I like, you know, at times the way he just seems badass, man. I don't know how to explain it because it's done so well that everything that Mechagodzilla does in this film that you could say looks like some degree of personality could also be explained as just him being a robot and literally just using his abilities, which, by the way, they don't constantly show the aliens like inputting all of the commands into Mechagodzilla for like every individual attack he does. In fact, at times it's clear that they just give an order to Mechagodzilla to fight, and that Mechagodzilla is like fighting on his own, which I think is brilliant. You know what I'm saying? And I also think it's brilliant that everything he does that seems like personality could also be explained as him just being a robot, because that means that they're not deviating too much from his actual lore and his actual design to have this personality. And again, it's just like, yes, like these are all things that I've been asking for like 4 movies now. So I was just so glad to see writing of this quality, acting of this quality, you know, the suit actors performing at this level. Everything was just excellent. And, you know, there's a scene where, like I said, you know, Mechagodzilla shoots the beam, King Caesar absorbs it, shoots it back. The second or third time that King Caesar does this in a row, Mechagodzilla dodges it. And I just like that, you know, I just like that. It shows like, you're not gonna, like, I just liked that he's learning, that he's adjusting, whether it's by command or not. You know, you can imagine that he's doing it on his own, and I like that. You can kind of lean anywhere. They leave room for you to kind of lean in whatever direction you want to. If you want to believe that Mechagodzilla is somewhat sentient and making its own decisions, you can reasonably lean into that and believe that if you want to. But if you also want to believe that he's just purely a robot and he's just processing information and it's just data-driven decisions, you can also go that direction as well. Godzilla, you know, obviously he ends up getting using more of his weapons. I love his weapons. The chest beam, the eye beam, the finger missiles, which I always wondered my whole life, how did he reload those finger missiles, right? Toe missiles, knee missiles, I think, like... he just has so many weapons. When he spins his head and makes that shield and Godzilla touches it and it damages him so much, it's just, and Godzilla squeals in this like loud high pitch, like you can tell it really hurt him. Fucking excellent. I think one of the best scenes in the movie comes when, you know, Godzilla returns to fight Mechagodzilla, and their second standoff is even more badass than the first one, I think. Like, it's just shot so well, and you get this close-up of Godzilla, like, rising, like, coming out of the water and, like, rising above. I can't remember if he came out of the ground or the water. I think it's the water. But, like, he's coming up over, like, the hill or the mountain, and you just see his face, and it's so serious. Like, the redesign to his face made him look so serious. And he shows up and starts fighting Mechagodzilla. And one of the best scenes is they're kind of going back and forth, and then King Caesar, like, wakes up or, like, snaps out of it. He comes to get, like, back into the action, and when he's running back at Mechagodzilla from behind, Mechagodzilla turns his head 180 degrees and just like real quick turns his head and locks it, so that he's still facing Godzilla. But I had a picture of it that I wanted to show because it's so cool the way that they do it. But I don't see the picture now. It's okay. It doesn't matter. But it's an iconic scene. Mechagodzilla's head turns around 180 degrees and is facing King Caesar, and his body's still facing Godzilla. And they show it, and they shoot it so well. Godzilla's on one side of him, King Caesar's on the other, Mechagodzilla's in the middle. His head, just his head with the eye beam, is holding off King Caesar. The body is holding off Godzilla with all the weapons and the missiles and stuff. And then Mechagodzilla just fucking goes off. He pops off, shooting both of them with lasers and missiles, explosions everywhere, and great pyrotechnics, and Godzilla and King Caesar both just go flying. And Mechagodzilla looks so strong and so badass in this film. And I just fucking love it. And he ends up like injuring Godzilla to the point where like Godzilla has just blood coming out of his mouth. He shoots Godzilla in the neck several times, and they show like he starts flying around and he's shooting Godzilla with the I-beam while he's flying, and he hits Godzilla in the side of the neck like multiple times, and then blood just starts shooting out of Godzilla's neck, like spraying. It's crazy. And Godzilla falls down, and then Mechagodzilla even shoots him with the missiles in the chest, but they don't explode. It just stabs Godzilla all over his chest and neck. And for a moment, it looks like Godzilla is like actually about to die. And Godzilla pulls himself together, gets up, and then it's like, this is like the one really silly thing they do that has no explanation in the fight. Godzilla kind of starts to power up like he was powering up when he was getting struck by that lightning. So it's like he's been carrying around this charge of energy or whatever, like he was harnessing it and not necessarily using it. Now he's using it, and he throws it, like he starts to like glow and charge up, and the missiles just like launch off of him, and Mechagodzilla is flying around, and all of a sudden Godzilla becomes magnetized and starts to pull Mechagodzilla towards him, and Mechagodzilla's trying to fly away, and Godzilla's like pulling him in. I like this scene, but I don't like it. I like it because it's just like, it is kind of badass. You know, like it even shows like two like electrical like power line towers get pulled to Godzilla and wrap around Godzilla, like breaking around his body because he's so magnetic. But, you know, and it's cool, and Mechagodzilla trying to fly away and he can't, and it's pulling Mechagodzilla towards him. It's badass. It's kind of a weird way to turn a fight, because it's a cool way to turn a fight, but it's weird because like I don't understand it. Maybe it's better. I am grateful that the human characters really don't attempt to explain it. They just say that Godzilla has turned himself into a giant magnet somehow. And yeah, I mean, he turns himself into a giant magnet, pulling Mechagodzilla towards him. Like, in this moment, I'm thinking, why wouldn't Mechagodzilla just fly towards Godzilla and attack him again, shoot him with the beams, like, or land and start shooting him and attacking him? I mean, you've already been doing this, and you know, you're confident, you're winning. You know, he was almost dead. So it seemed like a little bit of a gimmicky way to kind of turn the tide of the fight and pull Mechagodzilla back to Godzilla. Mechagodzilla lands, Godzilla charges him and jumps on him. Mechagodzilla tries to fly away, but Godzilla's holding him down. King Caesar comes running in and like shoulder tackles and shoulder charges Mechagodzilla. You see like dents in his armor where he's being destroyed and he's being damaged. And then that's the moment where Godzilla like starts punching him in the back of the neck, grabs his head and starts twisting his neck around and just breaks his fucking neck. And his head decapitates off his body. And that's when the humans finally sabotage the computers in the like space commanders like command center, and all the computers start exploding. And that's also gimmicky, like, you know, Professor Serizawa, or Dr. Serizawa, whatever, he has like this pipe that if you disconnect it destroys electrodes. It's just like a plot device that doesn't matter. But when they explode the computers in the command center, Mechagodzilla explodes and throws Godzilla into the water. And I wondered if they were going to do this thing where, like, did Godzilla survive that explosion or not? I wondered if they were going to show him again. He comes exploding out of the water, roars, leaves. Another one of my favorite moments. There's no goodbye between Godzilla and King Caesar. Mechagodzilla explodes. The final moment is reserved for just Mechagodzilla and Godzilla, which, thank you. And then afterwards, Godzilla just leaves. King Caesar just goes back to the mountain that he came from to like rest again until he's needed or whatever. There's no goodbye scene. There's no like cringe, like GG's, bro. Like, we did that. High five. There's no cringe. Like, thank you. And at the end of it, like, I remember as a kid, that was something that I didn't like. Like, it's funny, talking about it now, I just remembered it now, that when I was a kid, that was the only thing about this final fight I didn't like, is that the way Godzilla turned the tide of the fight really didn't make sense to me. Turning himself into a giant magnet from all the lightning strikes and pulling Mechagodzilla in. I guess that healed him as well. Like, it showed him healing on Monster Island. But like, it just seemed like all of the sudden the advantage went from like Godzilla being at 0 and Mechagodzilla being at 10 to like a very quick switch in advantage. And all of a sudden Mechagodzilla kind of goes from being like this godlike robot, like monster that has no weakness really and just cannot be defeated, like god tier strength and capabilities, to being almost helpless. And that was the only thing that I just really didn't like as a kid. Is I wish that there would have been a little bit more in the turning of the tide of this battle, because Godzilla looks like he's about to die. And then, all of a sudden, like, he just like Dragon Ball Z, like, levels up and like powers up and pulls Mechagodzilla towards him and holds him down and breaks his neck and decapitates him. What saves it is that it's just so fucking badass, you know what I mean? It's just so fucking badass that it's like, hey, listen, I'm not gonna hold it against you because what you gave me was so good. But I wish that would have been tweaked a little bit. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more pacing and a little bit more in that transition from Godzilla being like almost completely defeated and almost dead to destroying Mechagodzilla. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more there. But, overall, I do think it is a little bit of a nitpick. I kind of go back and forth on it because it did genuinely, to me, bring that final fight down, but just a little bit. Like, maybe from a 10 to a 9. Maybe from a 10 to a 9. But anyway, at the end of the day, I'm so grateful. I'm so thankful to sit down and watch a Godzilla movie. And I've tried to, like, I know I've criticized the last couple of movies harshly, but I've tried to say many times, I love this franchise. I still love these movies. Like, I cannot necessarily like the movie too much and still love it because of it's a part of history. It's a part of the history of this franchise. It's a part of the journey of this franchise. Whether you like it or not, whether it was necessary or not, a lot of these dips in quality and budget and, the bad films and what they did to the franchise, bringing it to maybe near death, it's what got us films like this. Films like, The Return of Godzilla. Some of the best films that we get in the entire franchise are after these stinkers that bring it down so much that basically the demand from the fans becomes, we're not going to watch this garbage anymore. We're not going to keep buying tickets until you give us a good movie. And then they have to give us a good movie, and then we get a good movie. Unfortunately, that's kind of the way that it seems to work with businesses. And this was also, by the way, this film came out in 1974. This was marketed as the 20th anniversary film. This is the 20th anniversary of the original film, and it was marketed as a really big deal. It's the 20th anniversary, and we're going all out, and they did. And this is a top tier Godzilla film to me. This is incredible. Like, I know I didn't talk a lot about the human characters and the human plot. it's mostly forgettable, to be honest with you. I do think that the human scenes are shot well. I love the score and the music that's used in the scenes. The acting is good. The fight scenes between the humans and the aliens are better than the previous couple of films, but still not good. Still not bad. Like, some of it's bad and some of it's actually okay. So it's kind of a mixed bag there. The plot with them trying to resurrect or summon King Caesar it's whatever. They're moving it along. That's what I say is the only thing that keeps it from really being peak. If you think about the best Godzilla movies, like the original film, the plot with Dr. Serizawa, the love triangle, the human tragedy, all of the human scenes, and the way that all the destruction affected the people was just as memorable as the Godzilla scenes. Those are the absolute peak Godzilla films. And there may not be, I don't know how many of those there are, right? Because I'm rewatching, but this is an excellent film. It may not be perfect. It may not be 10 out of 10, but this is like a fucking great movie, and I'm so thankful. I needed this so much. And I think the next film is Terror of Mechagodzilla. I think Terror of Mechagodzilla is next. Yeah, it is. 1975. It's a direct sequel. So Terror of Mechagodzilla is a direct sequel. I don't blame them at all for bringing Mechagodzilla back immediately. We got Gigan 2 films in a row. I'm a little bit upset at the way Gigan was handled, man. I'm bitter about that. I think Gigan was terribly mishandled. And the same goes for Megalon, and Hedorah was terribly mishandled as well. But Mechagodzilla was done right. And so it makes sense that he comes back, and I think that it's the last film of the Showa Godzilla era. Holy shit. It went on hiatus for 9 years before we get the return of Godzilla in 1984. Holy fuck, dude. I remember Terror of Mechagodzilla being like a more serious film, dark, kind of scary. I remember it also was had some campy moments and some hokey, melodramatic moments maybe, but we'll see. I'll reserve judgment till I get there. I'll see you guys soon for Terror of Mechagodzilla. But as far as this film, this is an iconic film for me. This might be in my top 10 Godzilla films ever made, honestly. This was excellent. I really enjoyed it, and especially like going on the journey in the order that the films were released in. Man, it had to feel so good for real Godzilla fans when this movie came out. Like, holy fuck, thank you. This was an excellent movie. I'll see you guys next time.